Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavate Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 2, contents of the Gita summarized, text 21 onwards. So Krishna is further speaking on this topic of soul in the body. Veda vinashinam nityam yaenam ajam avyayam katham sapurusha partha kam ghatyati hantikam. So Krishna says, "O Parth, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill?" So the soul is indestructible, cannot destroy it, eternal, it's always there, it never takes birth, never dies, unborn, he wants to make sure we understand everything about the soul, and immutable, cannot change. It cannot be changed into anything else. So the soul, we cannot do anything to it. So how can we think it can be killed? Or we should not cause anyone to kill. And how can it be killed and how can anybody be killed? Everything has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. Similarly, violence also has its utility, and how to apply violence rests with the person in knowledge. Although the justice of the peace awards capital punishment to a person condemned for murder, the justice of peace cannot be blamed because he orders violence to another person according to the codes of justice. In Manu Samhita, the law book for mankind, it is supported that a murderer should be condemned to death so that in his next life he will not have to suffer for the great sin he has committed. So this is the reason for capital punishment. But all this being human or this or that organization, they jump in, no, you should give him another chance and this or that, he can be rectified. He sure can be rectified, but the karma of killing another person will go with him. So no matter what, he has to suffer that reaction. So if a judge orders capital punishment, means then he's absolved of that karma. Or the other way to get rid of karma is engaging in devotion service. Krishna himself says, "Sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja." Tvam sarva papebhyo. Sarva pape means all sinful reactions. I'll take care of them. Don't worry. But since that part is not preached, not taught, so the person has to go through his karmic reaction. But to avoid that, to avoid even knowing about it, to avoid even thinking about it, from other scriptures, this point of reincarnation has completely been taken out. And although in Vedic scriptures it is there, but since people don't want to study the Vedic scriptures, or they've been put down by so many rulers in the past and even now, people don't want to believe there is reincarnation, there is next birth, next life. So if according to them, there is no next birth, so in this life only, whatever it is there, so to commit sin, you do whatever, just enjoy. There is no next life. Be done with it. That's it. Actually, in Christianity also, this reincarnation or next life point was there. Jesus knew everything, but it has been taken out of the Bible. Bible has been edited so many times. King James version and this King's version, that King's version. And one major addition or editing happened, and I believe it was King James, but I'm not sure about his name. He was very, very powerful king in the Middle East area. And his wife, he had married a prostitute. And she was pretty, and when she became the queen of this powerful king, she wanted to get rid of all her past, that nobody should remind her of the past. So all the fellow prostitutes of her time, she got all of them killed. There were many over there. And yeah, it was King Constantine, and that's why the kingdom was Constantinople, which later became Istanbul, now in Turkey. So she got all of the prostitutes who were with her, all of them killed. She was a queen now. And then she thought, oh, it is big sin and I'll have to suffer, but I'm queen now. I'm going to suffer when I'm going to suffer by the scripture, so you have to suffer next life, whatever sins you commit. Then she said, okay, let's get rid of it from the scriptures, from the Bible. There is no next life. So just because they get it edited out of the book doesn't mean the law won't work. Law would always work. But then this has become the standard now. That there is no next life. You talk all nonsense. And no, there is next life. And we can see it by just observing. Some babies are born healthy, some babies are born with some sickness, some deformity. Why? What did they do wrong in this life? Nothing. So reaction is coming from somewhere. But then the scientists come in, no, it's only DNA and chemicals. DNA, chemicals. They are based on something done by the soul. Chemicals are just chemicals, according to Bhagavad Gita, earth, water, fire, air, ether. They're just a gross body. Gross body on its own cannot act. Because of soul, we can get a certain kind of gross body, and then we keep on working. So gross body doesn't come together on its own. DNA, all the whatever chemicals are there, on their own, they don't come together. It's based on something, based on karma. Otherwise, how can it be explained? Babies are born in a very, very rich families. Some babies are born in very, very poor. They don't have anything to eat. Why? Who decides that? Chemicals cannot decide that. But then again, so that is why one person who has committed a crime, he should be punished, so that his karma is taken care of in this lifetime only. His karma is not prolonged. The karmic reaction is not prolonged. And that's when Prabhupada's right. Similarly, when Krishna orders fighting, it must be concluded that violence is for supreme justice. And thus Arjuna should follow the instruction, knowing well that such violence committed in the act of fighting for Krishna is not violence at all, because at any rate, the man, or rather the soul, cannot be killed. So for the administration of justice, so-called violence is permitted. So it's for the administration of justice, not Arjun was supposed to kill whimsically. And this is what Arjun himself wanted to avoid. He didn't want to kill. He said, this is sin, I will not be happy, and so many reasons he gave. But Krishna is saying it is sin if you act whimsically. And here, since Krishna is telling him to fight, well, not here, in Bhagavad Gita, later on he will tell. So it is not violence, it's not whimsical, it's not sin at all. And Krishna is the supreme authority. That's what Vedvyaji writes, Shri Bhagavan Vacha, every time. So if the supreme authority is saying, you do this fight, then it's not sin. So there is a difference in violence also. A surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient, but to cure him. Therefore, the fighting to be executed by Arjuna at the instruction of Krishna is with full knowledge. So there is no possibility of sinful reaction. So this is what, again, the soul, the topic of soul, the knowledge of the soul is so important for us. But we all have not been given this knowledge when we were growing up. And in fact, our parents did not teach this knowledge. In fact, it was just not in a fashion to even study the scriptures when we were growing up. Oh, what is the use? Take care of your class and college studies, get a good job, make money. That is also the goal, only the goal of life, not to study the scriptures. Because in our thought process was, or our parents' thought process was, or society's thought process, oh, if you study scriptures, you will leave everything and become a sadhu, Baba, go to the Himalayas. But this is not right. Arjun did not become a sadhu, Baba, go to. He wanted to before he learned Bhagavad Gita. He wanted to go away to the forest. Krishna stopped him. So the knowledge doesn't make one just go to the Himalayas, become a sadhu. No. Knowledge is important so that we can live our life properly according to the scriptures. Take care of our worldly duties. Job, business, family, society, relatives, whatever. Take care of them. We interact with them, but in the right frame of mind. And at the same time, progress on the goal of life, to achieve that goal of life. That's all the scriptures teach. But since we've been given the wrong message, whether through the movies or whether through the writings of so-called liberals and so-called so many atheistic people, this knowledge was lost, completely lost. And I can see from my life, before even I read ISKCON's Bhagavad Gita, I had never even touched Bhagavad Gita before, living so many years in India. Never even touched it. Forget about reading, forget about, now by Prabhupada's mercy, lecturing on it. This knowledge is so important, should be given out from the very beginning of the life. And then Krishna says, this is a very, very famous verse, and Prabhupada has quoted it so many times. Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grinati naro parani Tatha sharirani vihaya jirnanya anyani sayati navani dehi. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. So this body is just like a garment. We put on clothes. At night, we put on different clothes to go to sleep. Daytime, we're putting on different clothes. If we have to go to market, we put on different clothes. If we have to go to some party or some function, we put on different clothes. Summertime, different clothes. Wintertime, different clothes. But that doesn't change us. So similarly, the body. If we look at it from this aspect, it's just a covering. The body that we look at, because this is gross body, our senses are gross senses. We look at only gross body. We cannot even see the subtle body. What to speak of seeing the soul? And it's just a covering, nothing else. If we just think of, okay, because we get attracted to the opposite sex. What is that opposite sex? It's just a covering that we get attracted to. And our attraction is basically because it gives me pleasure, or I'm anticipating some pleasure from that body. It's just a covering. Every soul is wearing different clothes or different coverings, moving around, trying to get some pleasure, trying to get some money, and basically everything is for the pleasure. Money, power, position is for the pleasure of this covering, which is a cloth, just a covering on the body, covering on the soul. I'm sorry. Because I think I'm this body, I'm this covering, I act like this. If I have the covering or the cloth and the covering of a white color, I act like, oh, I'm white. If I have a covering of black color, I act like, oh, I'm black. I'm brown, I'm yellow, I'm a man and a woman, I'm dog, I'm the cat. It's just a covering, nothing else. It just Krishna's design is so beautiful. We start thinking, I'm discovering. And actually, when we talk of ahankar, subtle body is made of mind, intelligence, and false ego, ahankar. And that ahankar, in ISKCON terms, we sometimes describe it as, I am this car. And this is how we behave also. If in America I'm driving a Honda, then I start thinking I'm Honda, I'm not some Kia or other lower cars. And if I'm in Mercedes, then I'm Mercedes, that I'm not Honda, I'm not Toyota, I'm not Nissan, I'm not Mitsubishi, I'm better than them. If I'm driving a BMW, I'm better than Mercedes. Or if I'm in Tesla, oh, I'm the best. Or Rolls Royce, or whatever. We're not this car. It's just a piece of metal around us with some gadgets to take us from one place to another. That's all. Same thing about the body. I start thinking, I'm this body. Oh, I'm Punjabi, I'm Gujarati, I'm Indian, I'm a Chinese, I'm American. Start behaving accordingly. And then we start getting, this is the conditions, conditioned life, conditional body. And this is the conditions we have put in souls, and then we do acting, karmas based on the body, and we get entangled more and more and more. So Prabhupada says, change of body by the atomic individual soul is an accepted fact. Even the modern scientists who do not believe in the existence of the soul, but at the same time cannot explain the source of energy from the heart, have to accept continuous changes of body, which appear from childhood to boyhood and from boyhood to youth and again from youth to old age. From old age, the change is transferred to another body. This has already been explained in a previous verse. So body keeps on changing. And when it becomes old and useless, means the soul cannot live in the body any longer. It just changes the cloth, from one garment to another garment. That's all. It just, the change in this body that we are in, this is happening gradually, and at the time of death, the change happens all of a sudden. And that's when we all lament. But we all have lost our bodies when we were little babies or young bodies. Everybody wants to be young. Nobody wants to get old. But we have changed that body. This is the law of nature. We have to change, keep on changing. But nobody cries. Well, we hope we were that young body, but nobody laments that, oh, young body is gone. Uska kriya karo, chautha karo, terwa karo, that young body is gone. No. So similarly, this body we are in, it's going to change. It's going to be abrupt change at the time of death. That's about it. The soul goes on. Soul moves on from one body to another. Transference of the atomic individual soul to another body is made possible by the grace of the super soul. Super soul is watching everything, witnessing, sanctioning. That's what he does. The super soul fulfills the desire of the atomic soul as one friend fulfills the desire of another. The Vedas, like the Mundak Upanishad as well as Shvetashvatar Upanishad, compare the soul and the super soul to two friendly birds sitting on the same tree. One of the birds, the individual atomic soul, is eating the fruit of the tree. And the other bird, Krishna, the super soul, is simply watching this friend. Of these two birds, although they are the same in quality, one is captivated by the fruits of the material tree, while the other is simply witnessing the activities of his friend. Krishna is a witnessing friend, and Arjuna is a eating bird. Although they are friends, one is still the master and the other is the servant. Forgetfulness of this relationship by the atomic soul, and Prabhupada uses this word atomic by just to make us understand it's very, very minute. So forgetfulness of this relationship by the atomic soul is a cause of one's changing his position from one tree to another or from one body to another. So we have forgotten this relationship. The relationship is there. Super soul remains with us no matter which body we go to. He's always there. He's the closest. He's our best friend actually. And he's waiting for us to turn towards him. Towards him means towards the spiritual knowledge, spiritual aspect of life. We are so busy in eating the fruits. Eating the fruits means going through karmic reactions and creating more and more karma. That we don't even notice. He's sitting right next to us. The jiva soul is struggling very hard on the tree of the material body. But as soon as he agrees to accept the other bird as a supreme spiritual master, as Arjuna agreed to do by voluntarily surrender unto Krishna for instruction, the subordinate bird immediately becomes free from all lamentations. So immediately becomes free as soon as we agree to surrender to Krishna. as Arjuna agreed to do by voluntary surrender unto Krishna. Both the Mundaka Upanishad and Shvetashvatara Upanishad confirms this. Although the two birds are in the same tree, the eating bird is fully engrossed with anxiety and moroseness as an enjoyer of the fruits of the tree. But if in some way or other he turns his face to his friend, who is the Lord, and knows his glories, at once the suffering bird becomes free from all anxieties. Arjuna has now turned his face towards his eternal friend Krishna and is understanding the Bhagavad Gita from him. And thus, hearing from Krishna, he can understand the supreme glories of the Lord and be free from lamentation. Lamentation. Why the lamentation happens in our life? Basically, it happens because we have desires and desires don't get fulfilled. How many desires we have? Unlimited. Those desires, many of them coming from the previous lifetimes where we didn't fulfill or we partially fulfilled the desires. And now in this lifetime also we develop some desires because we're working, we're coming in contact with people. There's so many things we want to achieve. There's so many, tons and tons of desires. And if we analyze our life, even this lifetime, how many desires get completely fulfilled to our satisfaction? Very few. How many desires get partially fulfilled? Plenty of them. How many desires get not fulfilled at all? Oh, many, many of them. So those desires are not fulfilled or partially fulfilled, they'll go again with the soul because we had developed those desires. And those desires which become fulfilled, then we develop more desires on top of it. Suppose I desired to marry a particular girl. Okay, I married. Then what? More desires will be there. I have desires from her, or I get bored from her, and then I want to have another relationship with another girl. Because ultimately the desire is, that girl is just an instrument to fulfill my desire of enjoyment, bodily enjoyment. That's all. So why it is said, then he becomes free from lamentation if he turns towards Krishna. Because then we understand, I'm not this body. My job is, my goal of life is not to keep on fulfilling the desires of this body. Goal of my life is to serve Krishna, understand my position, develop love for Krishna, and go back to the spiritual world. Desire will still be there. It's not that we become desireless. Desire is there to serve Krishna, but that desire is a right desire. There's nothing wrong with that desire. The desire will be there to serve Krishna. I want to go back to the spiritual world and serve Krishna properly over there. But obviously, as we progress, then this material world becomes as good as spiritual world because we are serving Krishna. So because of these unfulfilled or partially fulfilled, partially unfulfilled desires, and since they don't get fulfilled, we get so many diseases. We get depression, we get other problems, other issues in our lives. And then those stress, anxiety, that leads to physical problems, physical issues. The immunity system goes down because we are under stress. And then the body cannot function properly, but the desires are still there with the soul. Okay, bodies cannot fulfill those desires, the desires remain. And then next body, next body, next body. This is really, if you look at it, it's a vicious circle. But Krishna says, why you want to live in this circle? Get out of it. And that is why he comes, performs his pastimes. He sends his representatives, sadhus, gurus, scriptures for us to fulfill our lives, real goal, real desire. But we are so much conditioned, so much into this material body and bodily relationships and bodily desires. Either we don't want to listen to him, or it takes a very, very long time to come to the right platform. Very long time. But anyway, this is why he has given this wonderful instructions for us to follow. Arjuna is advised herewith by the Lord not to lament for the bodily change of his old grandfather and his teacher. He should rather be happy to kill their bodies in the righteous fight, so that they may be cleansed at once of all reactions from various bodily activities. One who lays down his life on the sacrificial altar or in the proper battlefield is at once cleansed of bodily reactions and promoted to a higher status of life. So there was no cause for Arjuna's lamentation. So he was lamenting that, how can I kill these bodies of my grandfather Bhishma and my guru? Krishna is saying, we keep on changing the body. And when the body is just like a garment, it becomes old and useless one, we're going to change it. So you might help them changing the body because you're in the righteous side of the fight. You're on the dharmic side. They are not. They are going to die anyway. And of course, in Virat Rupa, when Krishna showed the Virat Rupa to Arjuna, he showed them all these warriors who have assembled here, they're going to die. I've already planned their death. So you fight and take the credit of killing them. They're not going back. So this garment they are in, they're gonna leave this garment here only. So, but looking at it from soul's perspective and just bodily perspective, that way also Krishna said, you should rather be happy to kill the bodies in the righteous fight. So indirectly he's saying, so what do you think? So Bhishma and Drona, suppose they become victorious, Duryodhana becomes victorious, they go back to Hastinapur. After killing you all, are they going to live forever? You'll die. So might as well kill them here, because it's a right path, right war. Further, he's speaking about the soul. Soul is so important. Further speaking. But you think you're going to kill them? Nanam chindanti shastrani, nanam dahati pavaka, na chanam kledyanti apo, na shoshati maruta. But this body, you cannot, the soul, you cannot do anything to the soul. The soul can never be cut to pieces. Nanam. Again, he uses this negative words to describe, so that there is no possibility of misunderstanding. Nanam chinnati, the soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon. Never. If he had said, oh, you can, no weapon can cut the soul. Well, you might have said, oh, some weapon we can find. No. He says, no, the soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon. Nanam dahati pavaka, nor burned by fire. Nor, never. It cannot happen. Na chanam kledyanti apo. Means nor moistened by water. Means even the water weapon will not. There are so many weapons, different kinds of weapons. There's a water weapon also. Like in Mahabharata and Ramayana, in the serials, we have seen that one warrior is shooting a weapon, it brings fire, an arrow, and the other warrior shoots an arrow, it brings water, and the water counteracts fire. We think it's mythology, it's just a graphical thing, it doesn't happen. No, it used to happen. Maybe not the way it is shown because there's such sophisticated weapons at that time. Here, these days, we only know fire weapons. We don't know water weapon, we don't know air weapon, we don't know other kinds of weapons. We only know fire. It just bombs are dropped, missiles are shot. It just creates explosion, fire. But there are so many different kinds of weapons. But Krishna says, with any weapon, you cannot destroy the soul. Only the body is destroyed. So their souls, even Bhishma and Dronacharya's souls, will remain as they are. All kinds of weapons, swords, flame weapons, rain weapons, tornado weapons, etc., are unable to kill the spirit soul. It appears that there were many kinds of weapons made of earth, water, fire, air, ether, etc., in addition to the modern weapons of fire. Even the nuclear weapons of the modern age are classified as fire weapons. But formerly, there were other weapons made of all different types of material elements. Fire weapons were counteracted by water weapons, which are now unknown to modern science. Nor do modern scientists have knowledge of tornado weapons. In any case, the soul can never be cut into pieces or otherwise annihilated by any kind of weapon. So tornado weapon, I mean, you shoot that weapon and the tornado happens. How to get out of it? The Mayavadi cannot explain how the individual soul came into existence simply by ignorance and consequently become covered by the illusory energy. The soul is so pure and cannot be affected by any kinds of weapons. So how come it became covered up by Maya? Mayavadis cannot. They say it just came into being. Or they say there is no such thing as soul, it's just energy. How can energy become covered over by Maya? They cannot explain all this. Nor was it ever possible to cut the individual souls from the original supreme soul. So this is something we have to understand. Although it is called soul is part and parcel of the supreme, of Krishna, but if the soul cannot be cut into pieces, how can the super soul be cut into pieces? Or the supreme soul be cut into pieces? So how does the soul come into existence? Well, as Krishna has explained, it's eternal. It's never a time. The soul did not exist. In the material world, because our limitation is based on time and space, we cannot think beyond time. So everything has to have some beginning and an end, but not the spiritual world. And space means everything has to be within the confines of some space. We cannot imagine or understand the spiritual world, for which it is said it's always increasing, expanding. So we get confused that to what limit it can expand. There is no limit. If the limit is there, then it is material, it's not spiritual. And similarly, the time, there's no limit of time. That, okay, Beyond these trillion years or gazillion years, there was nothing. It doesn't say that. Nowhere it is said in the scriptures. There was nothing. There was always something. So in material language understanding, that's where we are lacking. The soul is eternal. Krishna is eternal. Krishna's associates are eternal. Krishna's creation is eternal. Spiritual world is always there, always manifested, and material world manifests and unmanifests. But it's always there in one form or another. Then Prabhupada further says, because they're atomic individual souls, eternally, sanatan, they're prone to be covered by the illusory energy. And thus they become separated from the association of the Supreme Lord, just as the sparks of fire. Although one in quality with the fire, are prone to be extinguished when out of fire. In the Varaha Puran, the living entities are described as separated parts and parcels of the Supreme. They are eternally so, according to the Bhagavad Gita also. So even after being liberated from illusion, the living entity remains a separate identity, as is evident from the teachings of the Lord to Arjuna. Arjuna became liberated by the knowledge received from Krishna, but he never became one with Krishna. He never merged in Krishna. He always remained as an individual. So all the scriptures talk about our individuality. So we remain individual in our spiritual body in Vaikuntha. That's liberation. But liberation, what people talk about liberation is merging in Brahman Jyoti. Brahman Jyoti mein vileen ho jana. But that's not the real liberation, because that is also temporary. The soul falls down from there also. So Brahman Jyoti is not the ultimate, not the topmost goal. Topmost goal is to be with Bhagavan, with Krishna, or whichever, Ram or Narsimhadev or Adev, and be on their planet and live eternally with them, serving them, being associating with them. That's the ultimate goal. Further, Krishna says about the soul, Achedyo ayam adayo ayam ashod aklebdyo ashosha evacha nitya sarva gata sthan achalo ayam sanatanam. Again, many, many important words. This individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. All these qualifications of the atomic soul definitely prove that the individual soul is eternally the atomic particle of the spirit whole, and he remains the same atom eternally without change, sanatan, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. The theory of monism is very difficult to apply in this case, because the individual soul is never expected to become one homogeneously. It always remains individual, always. It just doesn't, like all the souls merge together and become one. It doesn't happen like that. After liberation from material contamination, the atomic soul may prefer to remain as a spiritual spark in the effulgent rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the intelligent souls enter into the spiritual planets to associate with the Personality of Godhead. So soul may prefer to remain, it says, individuality is choice, to remain as a spiritual spark in the effulgent rays, means in the Brahm Jyoti. But as Bhagavatam says, from Brahm Jyoti also the soul falls down back into the material world. The word Sarvagata, all pervading, is significant because there is no doubt that living entities are all over God's creation. Because the living entity is not dependent on any material atmosphere. They live on the land, in the water, in the air, within the earth, and even within fire. So somebody can say, well, how come they can live in fire? Well, there is sun planet. There is sun god. And if the planet is there, sun god means that he's a ruler of the sun planet. There must be some population to rule over. So there are entities in sun planet also. How can they live there? Well, this body, so soul cannot be burnt. So is the subtle body also cannot be burnt. We cannot destroy the subtle body. Now remains the gross body. So gross body is made of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So for those entities on the sun planet, in their body, the percentage of fire element is much more. Like we are living on earth. So in our body, this composition is different. Just like there are entities, so many, innumerable entities underwater, in the ocean, in the rivers. So how can they live underwater? We cannot live underwater with this body. We have to have so many things, either submarine or we have to make other arrangements if we want to live underwater. Even for swimming, snorkeling, or scuba diving, we have to have so many apparatus to even do so for maybe half an hour, 1 hour, or 2 hours, whatever. But the fishes live underwater easily, calmly. They don't have any scuba diving instruments attached to their bodies because their body composition is different than ours. So our composition is we have to live on earth, on the land. They can live underwater. They cannot live on the land. Birds have different composition. They can fly in the air. We cannot fly in the air. We have to have this aeroplane to fly in the air. And even in aeroplane, we are so uncomfortable and so many things can go wrong. Pressure change or whatever. Then we cannot fly. So this is all temporary because we have higher intelligence, we have made arrangements, so we can fly. But that's not flying like a bird. Bird flies without any need of anything. Eagles fly so way up high there because their bodily composition is different. It's all made of earth, water, fire, air, ether. But it just which element will be more and which element will be less, that all taken care of. So similarly, there are entities in the sun planet. They just have a different bodily composition. There are entities everywhere, every planet, moon planet, Mars, everywhere. And that's when we say, oh, we went to moon, we didn't see anything, we didn't find anybody. Well, first, the moon landing theory, there are so many issues with that. But even if we say we went to moon, and even if we claim we went to moon, and we didn't see anybody there. But why? Because the bodily composition of those residents on the moon is different from our composition, not the same as us. Our instruments are designed for these eyes to see in a different way. That's all. But their composition is different. We haven't designed the instrument to see that body composition. So how can we see them? Similarly, the entities on Mars or other planets, entities are there everywhere. They just have different body with a different composition. It's a human form of life, human species only, but different composition. That's all. So Prabhupada says they live on the land, in the water, in the air, or within the earth, or even within fire. The belief that they are sterilized in fire is not acceptable because it is clearly stated here that the soul cannot be burned by fire. Therefore, there is no doubt that there are living entities also in the sun planet with suitable bodies to live there. If the sun globe is uninhabited, then the word sarvagata, living everywhere, becomes meaningless. So the souls are everywhere. That's Krishna himself saying they're sarvagata, everywhere. So by this, we start appreciating the qualities of the soul, and we should start thinking or looking at everything in a little different way. I'm not this body, I'm spirit soul, and the other person is also not this body, spirit soul. Just covered by different garment and different kind of mind and intelligence, and his or her viewpoints are different, her sanskaras or impressions are different, so they behave different. That's all. But everybody is a soul, not the body. Okay, so I guess I can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, a small question, just a curiosity. Souls are same in a shape and looks wise. Like like my soul and my daughter's soul. When I die and my daughter will die, does the souls will be the same? No, different souls. And how they will be identified? This was Archana's soul and this was my daughter's soul. ये कैसे समझ में आता है? Now we are identified with the bodies, that this is this, but after death, the souls. You got my this thing question? Okay.
So Yamaraj ji,
Yeah.
he is in charge of all this, and he has a very good assistant. His name is Chitragupta. He's a IT head of Yamaraj ji, and he has a huge team. So they keep track of every soul's activities, thought processes, everything. And they get the data from, as we studied in Bhagavatam, so many different agencies they get the data from. Paramatma also gives them the data. Okay, this soul did this. And then they keep everything in the record. How they keep, they must be knowing how they are identifying each and every different soul. But they keep the data. And then they give the feedback to Yamaraji when we go there, and he decides whether we're going to get which body, which family, which planet, how much punishment, how much good destiny, according to us, whatever good we think it is, he decides.
Okay.
Can we imagine his supercomputer? Every soul, all
Yes,
over the
Prabhuji.
universe.
Exactly.
One person.
यही मैं सब सोच रही हूँ. मतलब I'm listening to your answer and my mind is going, कैसे, how?
It's mind-boggling. It's completely crazy. How is it possible? But they do that, and they've been doing that since Like every day or every manvantar, they all change their position. So one for time period of one manu, this team comes and takes over. That's it.
बेटर है भक्ति कर लो, दिमाग ही ना लगाओ.
बेटर तो वही है.
चैंटिंग करते चलो, ज़्यादा सोचने की जरूरत ही नहीं है.
But this is good for preaching and also for our understanding, but it's good for preaching. So we can preach to people that this is not some sentimentalism. It's all based on science, real science.
Amazing.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank
it is. Thank you,
Bhakti.
Mata. Thank you all. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai
Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.